Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of a podcast around SPARK The Midlands. SPARK is a preclinical accelerator program now carried out around the world. The first branch of the UK SPARK program is in the Midlands. We support anyone developing something novel for an unmet clinical need. And today I'm delighted to be joined by two of the founding members of EVolution Therapeutics, one of the groups on our first SPARK cohort. And hello, guys.
Thanks for inviting us on.
All right. So I introduced myself in the first one of these. So you should have just watched that if you want to know who I am. But I'm Luke Southan. I'm the director of SPARK The Midlands. I'm a biologist by training, like you guys. So we'll try not to get too nerdy on just the biology today. But do you guys want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I can go first. I'm Dr. Gavin. I'm the CEO of EVolution Therapeutics. We're a spin-out company from Aston University. We're looking to develop novel extracellular vesicle-based therapeutics for the treatment of inflammatory diseases, and we've got a specific focus around non-healing wounds.
Hi, I'm Andrew Devitt. I'm a professor here at Aston University, interested in cell death and control of inflammation and all of the benefits we can get from translating that.
Awesome. And so there's a few things I'd like to talk about today. I'd like to talk about the science. We are going to get a little nerdy with it. It'd be stupid if we didn't. I'd like to talk a lot about your journeys. You've done 20 years of bioscience research to get to this point. You, when we first met, weren't introducing yourself as Dr. Gavin because you weren't doctor yet.
I've since been told to do that by you. More impact, but
yeah. And then a little bit about how the SPARK program's going. So shall we start with you, Andrew?
You're really flattering. It's 30 years. I've been doing the science now, but it's the good face cream that's keeping me looking so young. So, for the last 30 years, I've been trying to understand more about immunology. And from there, working on cell death. And every day in our body, about 1 million cells are dying every second, right through the day. That's like an armful dying. It feels like a real problem, but we cope with it. And we cope with it because we control the immune system. And it's understanding that control of the immune system that helps us think that could be really good for us sometimes, because disease is caused not quite exclusively, but to a very significant degree by poorly controlled immune responses, and we do ourselves damage. So if we can control that immune response, we've got novel approaches to novel therapies. So for us, finding out what the magic ingredient was from dying cells that go to the immune system cells and say, just calm down. And our way of doing that was to look for the products these cells made. And over about the last 15 years, with plenty of government funding, thanks to the BBSRC, with funding from Alzheimer's Research UK, with funding from Dunhill Medical Trust to give us all the cool bits of kit that we need and to keep staff in jobs. We've done some amazing work to identify these small membrane bags that dying cells release. But crucially, it's not just the bag, it's what's inside them. And we've found some really cool activities within that. And that's the basis of a novel approach to that control of the immune response. And if we can calm that down in just the right place, we can address any inflammatory condition within that. And the translation journey is really where Jimmy came into this at the back end of his PhD, and then looking forward into the kind of application of that. Where can we make the biggest impact for the world? And that's what SPARK Midlands is going to do for us, is help us with that. All of the guidance that we need to be able to take it from where we are now within the university through to making a difference to people's lives.
Yeah, awesome. And I think there's a couple of things to unpick there. So one, it's really interesting that you started 30 years ago in this area, because 30 years ago, this sort of therapy, it wouldn't really have been a thing that you're developing, but it's becoming more and more we need to drive a standard of care where we're enabling existing biology to just work, right?
I mean, that's exactly right. So, everything about control of the immune system historically has been the immune system gets itself better at the end of inflammation normally, because it's good for us usually. It's only when it continues for too long that it becomes chronic and causes disease. But it normally passively just ends. And, whatever the inflammatory stimulus is, whether it's an infection or whatever, once that's gone, there's no drive to get things better. But what we've learned, certainly over about the last 20 years, is there's a really active decision there. The immune system, as it starts an inflammatory response, also initiates a response to get better and to calm down. And it's the offset in the timing of these two different events, the turning on and the turning off, that gives the window where inflammation does its good stuff. And then at the end, it helps us go back to our normal state. that's what we're trying to understand, because then we can apply those signals where it's not happening effectively, and to try and work on that.
Yeah, awesome. And then when you would have started in lab work and doing science, like we would have started to be going, yeah, we can do more of these biologic therapies, right? So was this something that drove you in? What's your journey, Jimmy?
Yeah, well, originally got involved, because always had a fascination. My best friend grew up with cystic fibrosis. So it's always been, the translational side has been a fascination for me, how you get a drug to market and how you can actually treat the patient at the end. So that's why SPARK is so great. But I was very fortunate to, come in at the tail end of a lot of, 30 years of research. Another co-founder that's part of EVolution Therapeutics, Dr. Ivana Milic, she's now a biosciences lecturer at Aston University, but she did some fantastic research in the lab before me while I was doing my PhD as a postdoc. So when I came into the lab and transitioned into a postdoc position, there was already that fantastic idea there. And as Andrew mentions about the science, these little packets of information that are released from cells, they had done some brilliant work, profiling these, what we call extracellular vesicles. And what they had found out is, constituents or components of these extracellular vesicles could be really, really useful for resolving inflammation and down the way for people that have inflammatory diseases. So essentially, I acted as the kind of conduit to translate that research from fundamental basic research towards translating it into a therapy, because it did have great therapeutic potential, we thought, within the group. So as part of that, and as part of the, all the support we've received from Aston and yourself at the time, Luke, in the tech transfer office, you've been a big proponent of that, is encouraging us to apply for the iCure program, which was funded by UKRI.
Always a shout out to the funders.
Yeah, always.
got
to put it in there.
Shameless.
Yeah, absolutely shameless.
So we will always have more money.
Yeah. That's it. They should give us more after that. And it stands for iCure program. It stands for the Innovation to Commercialization of University Research. And I think it was great timing. A lot of these programs didn't exist at the time. The same with the SPARK. And it was there to kind of give me a chance to get out of the lab and validate that research and see if we could actually translate that into a therapy in reality. So for 3 months, it wasn't a hard sell from you, because you said basically, Jimmy, you get to travel the world for 3 months and talk science. And that was a big thumbs up for me. So that's what I did. I traveled the world, spoke to a load of experts from, clinicians to people that could help manufacture and scale this up, and to the patients themselves to see if, it was actually something that they would try, and if, to see their quality of life, how bad it was. So from that, after the 3 months, you pitch at what they call an options roundabout to a panel of experts. And if they like what you've brought back, they recommend you to form a spin out where you get a further 3 months to start setting up the business, with the kind of, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow of some grant funding, which is, the most important thing to make these things happen. So we're very fortunate that we put in the grant and we won it, and it gave us the finances to start up EVolution Therapeutics.
And I think a lot of people will be interested in this transition of getting out the lab, right? Like on the previous podcast, Passy talked about how science can be like isolating, lonely. I left lab work in 2017 because I had a friend who was like, lab work is essentially 6 months of like trying to make something work, and then it works and it's the most amazing day. Yeah. But by then you're in a niche that like 4 people really care.
Exactly.
And if you have a lab head who's like, actually, I don't care, like it's the end of days, right?
Yeah.
But there are so many people like, what could I do next? So many people are working on this translational stuff. So many people have wanted to drive impact from their work. How have you found that transition?
Yeah, to be honest, it is difficult at the start. You are kind of focused on an academic way of thinking. As you say, you're in the lab for a week of disappointment, maybe, and then for just, that end result, whether it goes right or wrong, and just to progress and push the project and the science, an inch further. And then when you go out there, and when I went through the iCure program, there's all this, esoteric language flying around, a lot of acronyms. I have no idea what's going on.
Got to talk about inflection points, Jimmy.
Exactly, inflection points and all CSOs and all sorts of stuff. And but if you can, it's the PhD in a way is a training for that that, times are difficult, but, it's always going to be new and novel. And you're going to, if you go away and you're curious and you want to learn and pick things up, then you'll start to pick things up and you'll develop that kind of commercial sense. But transitioning from there, it's really exciting as well there. That's kind of downside. It's anything that's new is challenging, but if you get over that hump, it becomes really exciting. And, you build out yourself as an individual and a completely different skill set, from pitching to investors to, holding board meetings, something you have no idea at the start. You develop all them skills out. And I think it's what's needed, say, within the Midlands, as you start to bring people with them skills and develop them out, then, they can transition between different roles. So I think it's really important to have that translational side.
Yeah.
And I just jump in on
please?
That? Because I reckon the secret for success in this is the team. And actually what we've done is built an amazing team. And you've mentioned Ivana, and Jimmy has progressed. I think you put yourself down when you said you were a conduit. I'm sure you're way more than that, mate. But everybody brings a slightly different perspective on the science then. And that's the secret for success, because we're not losing all of that background, that pedigree, that history, that strength.
And it's a massive point, because I spend far too much of my time talking to these investors and learning the language they use and stuff like this. And it's amazing when I start to explain to groups like what you need to be doing, because I'm like, they are never going to question you on the science. You are absolute domain experts on this. Like, it will be irrefutable if you're saying this is this, because you will have papers and evidence to back it up. Where they are going to start to question you is like, is your team good? And maybe this is a nice way to start chatting more about EVolution Therapeutics, because your team is really good.
We were fortunate. Was it by design, by accident? I don't know. I like to think a little bit by design that we pulled the team together, and we certainly work well together. So, my background, inflammation, cell biology, historically microbiology. Ivana comes in as a physical chemist and brings a whole new set of skills. And we interact and manage to train her in the cell biology. And then she takes a new angle and asks different questions for the science. And it's asking those questions that spawns a really active discussion. And we do some cool experiments. And lo and behold, we discover what this magic cargo is in these particles. Jimmy's there working on these particles in his PhD program with another really important active component there. That is something that we're working on. And suddenly he's got the interest, comes to the end of his PhD, there's a job opportunity there. We keep the people in the team that are worth really keeping. And it's just developed beautifully. And then, Jimmy stepped on to another slightly different position within the team. Couldn't do that without the science he's got.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think I got asked a question at a conference before, like, how is it being a CEO? How do you do all these things? Well, it's, a CEO in name. You really do have to have that support system around you and that team. It is, the end result is the result of the team pulling together. And, one of the first things of, these cliche terms you hear with investors, it's like, we look for the 3 T's, team, tech, and traction. But, a massive proportion of that they're looking for is the team. So no one person can do this alone. It's a massive venture to take on, and you need the different skill sets, everybody pulling in the same direction. And it's the only way that you can succeed.
And you've brought in, like, I think also the right people to fill in those. I think there's bits that people worry about, right? So like the finance people worry about, but you guys have brought in Liz. She's ex-KPMG. She's an incredible CFO, absolutely gets her stuff. Well respected by capital in the region. So this is lovely for you. You brought in Matt because, like, from an operational perspective, some of the biggest challenges with a uni spin out at the start are dealing with a uni. And he has been doing uni paperwork for so long, but also has the right scientific background that he can talk to you guys.
I mean, there's a bit of fortune in that with some of the background that's come together, but there's another T in there, and that's trust. And if you've got this team together and they all know what they're doing, you can trust them to do their job, and the actual end product is better. Rather than us all trying to do everything, there's no success to be gained out of that. But actually, from the team and that trust, it's amazing. And we've got an immense team.
And it's something that really excites me about EVolution, because this is the challenge I face most often. Like, if my day job is doing tech transfer at Aston, it's going, we've got the scientific expertise, but do we have the operational side? Do we have someone who can stand up in front of an audience and be that CEO? Because not every wonderful scientist is a wonderful speaker. Exactly. Some of them are incredible at talking about their science, but then when you move them into a business setting, they go, no, this is scary. And I'm like, it shouldn't be. You have the capacity to be confident here. Yeah. But you guys are really well rounded out. And trying to make these rounded teams brings us lovely onto SPARK The Midlands. Hey. So I guess you joined the program in January, really. This is when we began. We're 6 months in. How have you found it?
Yeah, brilliant. I think it was fantastic timing for us. You know, the IQL program was a pre-accelerator program. SPARK is more the accelerator. And, you know, points that we've often struggled with or a challenge is, you know, what are the kind of industrial tools or mechanisms that you would use to take a therapy to clinical or first in human clinical trials? And I think that's where SPARK comes in perfect, you know, target product profiles, comprehensive Gantt charts. Although not fun to do.
It sounds so exciting, right?
Like, I'm really selling it for you.
I hope to see
all your applications for the next cohort.
It's important, right? Like, so for people who don't know, target product profiles were brought in something like 20 odd years ago by the FDA, basically saying to big pharma, you keep bringing all your preclinical documentation to us how you want it. This is what you need to cover. So, like, what's your indication? How are you going to deliver this? Like, how do you store this, etc. And so the first thing we do is we list out all of these variables all the way through to, like, are you going to need cold chain supply one day? And just say, like, what's the answer to these? And where you don't know, how can we start building out experiments that let you understand this? Or how do we contact a clinical research organization who's going to let you interrogate that and decide what to do? The second thing we do is that comprehensive Gantt chart, but it's important, right? So
yeah, I think the first part is, you know, the process is how would you actually go about it? Because, you know, coming from academia, we're just a bit clueless in that sense, and we do need that guidance and that direction. And then the second part of it is the experts, you know, that are involved. People like Randir, regulatory specialists, someone you can just ask questions to, like, well, further down the road, what sort of regulations would someone like the FDA be looking at for our type of therapeutic? Very bespoke advice given to us as well. And then obviously you bring in a lot of experts to give talks on different parts of commercialization or what you might also need down the road. And then I think the final part that brings it all together is the cohort and the group itself, that you can lean on people and say, you know, I'm finding a challenge here. It's almost like everybody's a mentor to each other. And, you know, someone within the group would have come across the same problem as you, and they can advise you, you know, they can give you some help, some support, or some contacts to try and get you out of the challenge that you're in.
Yeah, the cohort effect is massive in these sort of things. And I think it's something SPARK everywhere across the world that I've seen it done does so well. Like, and you learn that even with, I always look at the Birmingham ecosystem as being like, we've built some really solid foundations. The science is incredible. The capacity to do clinical trials is incredible. Maybe the teams aren't there and we need to build that. Maybe the expertise isn't there and we need to build that. But it turned out recently one of the SPARK cohort members has done an IPO on the London Stock Exchange. And I was like, that's crazy. This is a level of expertise that I didn't think we were going to have around here. And now you can enable other people, because that is one of the routes to go forward with. And
it's a broader team, right?
Yeah.
We need that expertise. As Jimmy said, you know, we need the expertise, we need the guidance, we need the mentorship. We are academics. I'm not sure we're totally clueless. We're better than that, aren't we?
Well, I'll speak for myself.
There's definitely somewhat of a clue. And, you know, like, watching you has been really interesting. Interesting is the wrong word. Like, fun for me over like the last 2 years, because you've gone from, like, I'm a postdoc, I do lab work, I'm now being sent across the world, I'm having these weird conversations with people about, like, market sizes and clinical indications and lead indications, to someone who can stand up in front of venture capital and go, hey, I'm the CEO of EVolution Therapeutics, we're doing this, we need this much money. And it's coming with competence, and, like, SPARK The Midlands hopefully enables that and gets you in front of more investors.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. And take a step back of saying academics are clueless. It's only because they don't have the opportunity and the exposure to these sort of environments.
Yeah.
So that's where SPARK The Midlands is fantastic. You know, if you give people the opportunity, and even if they, you know, are scared of public speaking, or, you know, everyone has their advantages, disadvantages, but, you know, if the opportunity presents itself, you see that growth and development, and that's where SPARK The Midlands is perfect.
And this is my pitch often to people who are contemplating applying for it. I'm like, what you get is you would get a mass expansion of your team very quickly, because you get me, you get Randy, you get Shiner, but you also get this cohort of people who are all going through similar challenges who you can start to lean on. It's like having departments within your group that you've never had access to before.
But you need that because we're accelerating,
Yeah.
right? We're at that point where things, they can't just grow organically as they might do in an academic group, because whatever funding you've got is going to be running out. You need the expertise and the guidance to be able to get that next set of funding, to be able to do those next activities that are not an academic project, that are a project that's got really defined endpoints, and we need to do X, Y, and Z to be able to get that money to be able to move on to the next stage.
We want to talk now about like what comes next for EVolution Therapeutics.
So we've fortunately won a second Innovate grant now to to basically actually work in collaboration with Aston University, with Professor Paul Topham, who's a biomaterials expert here, and I think was
I believe a previous
podcast interview. And we're looking to develop out a kind of delivery system for our therapy using pluronic hydrogels for topical delivery in non-healing wounds, and specifically things like diabetic foot ulcers, and really just progressing the therapy forward, looking in vivo in animal models, and then towards hopefully we get some really positive data back. That'll inform us a lot, and then developing, we'll need another tranche of money because it's very expensive then to start to move towards GMP and manufacturing that way. But hopefully transitioning towards first in human clinical trials, and eventually having a positive impact for people with unmet clinical needs. I mean, that's the main goal of, I think, everybody around this table, and why people get involved, because they want to make a difference to patients' lives.
This is the real pitch for all of this, for like SPARK The Midlands. If you're a researcher who wants to translate your science, it's at the end of it, you could be changing clinical outcomes. You could be making a real difference from your research. As a final point, if you're an investor watching this, how long before you guys start going, yeah, we want your money and we're one of the best places to put your money?
Yeah, I think come chat to us
right now.
Yeah,
Awesome.
No time like the present. Yeah, come chat to us. We've got really exciting data coming through. That's very promising for the development of this therapy. And we'll be happy to chat with anyone and, show them a deck and show them where we stand. And we, have them early engagements, and come along, come chat to us.
And those results are coming by the day, right?
Yeah, by the
Super
day.
exciting.
Last board meeting, good results. It was great.
And it's way better than that already.
Oh, wonderful.
And when was the board meeting? 5 days ago or something like that?
Last week.
Yeah. We're all over this, and it couldn't be any more exciting.
We're very, very excited.
Absolutely incredible. Okay, so on that wonderful note, Jimmy, Andrew, thank you. And all right. Goodbye.
Been a
Thank you
pleasure.
very much, Luke.